All right, good morning, everyone. It is the 17th or 18th, 18th, I think. Yeah, December 18th. Wow, almost the end of the year. Um, Perfect. Thanks, Solus. Okay, so we have a lot of tickers. So let's hit them, and they're alphabetical. And I'm going to break them into three different tickers if I remember. Let me see. They were, if I can remember. I always say that, and I always mess that up. So I'm going to break it up at just before EVgo, Euro versus Australian dollar. If anybody can remember, that would be the last one of video one. About 45, 43 tickers each one. All right, we'll start with AA. Not an obvious entry point, although it has given back a lot. I would be more comfortable around the 38. By the way, there's going to be a sheet that go along with that with the write-up, and they will all be listed there with pictures. All right, so that's one. So I would be more comfortable in here, especially that the markets are having it dizzy right now. This one is falling into support, but again, the support zone extends into like 12 or 11.9. So no reason to buy a call, but if you want to catch the falling knife with a credit put spread, that could work. This one, Apple, the alarm bell went off for me. Unless Apple gets back to 138 and holds, it could be in 118. Yes, and when you get there, it could be lower. Remember, Apple still has a lot to give from the pandemic. They still have not gone near the pandemic breakout like Tesla. So I'm saying this could trigger this, which would come down to here, even double digits. This is not my forecast, but I'm just saying if the markets want to correct 10%, this is the guy that's going to take him there. So watch Apple this week. It needs a bounce right away. If not, it's in danger of triggering one bearish pattern to launch another one, which will cut through all of this and come down to here. I'd be comfortable going long in size when they take out this candle or they get into it. So the double digits. That's not my forecast, but it's there. You need to respect it. No way in heck I would ever say, yes, you can go long this stock up here. Not an obvious entry point. That's the easy answer. ABC, also not an obvious entry point. It looks like they have a lot of sellers into 169. And I would be careful, because if it loses this, it can come back to target 1, which is 158, target 2, 154. Those two are in play. Airbnb, good place to start longs if you want to, quote, invest in it. Not a good place to go all in. That $100 candle up here was death. I know there are sellers at 94, so the only way I personally would go along Airbnb is, like I said, I would sell a put spread and wait. I shared it last week or 2 weeks ago. ADM stuck in the middle of the range. They have sellers into 94. They have buyers into 90. If you lose 90, you slip a lot lower. ADSK looks like it has, Autodesk has a lot of buyers here. But if you lose this, you end up in the 160 area. Maybe 176 to 172. So definitely not an obvious entry point, but it could be one for traders. But you can see how big that head and shoulders is. So you can imagine if the market's correct, it will lose this and come back down to 20 bucks. I don't know why I have an orange thing on here. Let's take it out. Okay. So Apple, danger. I don't need anything here. Okay. What are we looking at? AG, not an obvious entry point, falling into support. If it bounces to 9, it will have sellers. So be careful. So it could bleed a little bit lower is what I'm saying. ALB, falling into support. That support needs to hold. Otherwise, another leg lower. I don't know much about the stock, so I imagine if it bounces and it fails because there are sellers here, it can come back, take this out, and come back down to 180 would be a better entry point. Applied Material, there's no reason to get long here. Absolutely none. I would not touch it. In fact, it could be headed to 98, and if 98 fails, 92 or 88 are in check, are next in line. AMD, it's given back the spike of late, and it's trying to hold. I hate the fact that they jumped here in a giant gap, but it has traded here. So 64 could be a support zone, but consider it being extending to like 61. Of course, you cannot lose this. It's still in the hands of the sellers on the weekly. All right. Amazon, it's a good bargain. because if I look at the 1 week, it's unlike Apple. It has already, I don't know why there's lag in this stupid thing. This is pandemic level, so it has given back all of its pandemic gains. So yeah, it can bleed lower with the market on by its own. It's fallen enough on its own. ARKF, a good spot to quote, trade it up and stop immediately. If they lose this, they come down to 12 or 11, but it's a good trading spot. Not a good entry point. Vulnerable, although strong stock. And on the daily basis, if you remember, that's the one I said I used, right? Where are the marks? There they are. Weird. See, there's something wrong with TradingView. You remember I used it as an example. You need to dip to break out. That's what I was telling markets. The Dow dipped to break out. The Woods one dipped and broke out. Now it's testing for footing. So if it comes back down to 530, I would enter along. I would expect it to come back and try to take this out to finish the job. Won't be easy, especially if markets are correcting. But that's the concept. Dip so you can break out. Bank of America, okay, fallen back into support. I don't like banking at all, and it does have a strong support level. So if I wanted to own shares, I could sell below 29 and at the risk of getting assigned at 29. Otherwise, it goes to 24. Definitely not an obvious entry point. Vulnerable to 56. Beto, I am still long Beto. I'm still long crypto. I made money on them. They're tradable. Somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago, would I sell puts in Beto? I would, but I haven't. I think it will fall with the market. It showed a lot of strength last week, but then it all disappeared. So maybe into this gap maybe if it fills the gap, if it falls into 950, I would probably sell a 9 put if it's available. Otherwise, I just hold my shares. I'm not adding to them, but I would add if they force me. BKI, I don't know it. It's middle of the range. What's this open gap to 56? I don't like that chart. I know there are sellers into 61 and 2. Berkshire, also not an obvious entry point, better at 288. In fact, that's 286, 287 is target of that red thing you see on the screen. The target 2 is 268 or lower. I think it stops at 284, 282 if it does fall. So it's not an obvious entry point. Braze, okay, trying to come out of a base, so maybe it has a rounding bottom working. So 31 would be good news. First order of business, hold 26, 25 and a half. Definitely not an entry point. Wow, that is vulnerable. Down to 165 and 145. Who is this? Okay, BX. I know it's good value. I know a couple of you actually asked for it. That's why this box is there. It was a discussion. So clearly it is challenging. It could still work out. The credit put spread down in this area, but if the markets continue to fall, this one will fall as well. And they are selling rallies. So on a rally, I would close this. Otherwise, I can move it forward out in time so I don't have to get assigned or anything. So Caterpillar, we nailed it. I remember shorting it and doing an iron condor on it. Look at the head and shoulders, it's drawing. You see that? Shoulder, head, shoulder. So if they lose 227, but it's plus or minus a couple of bucks because you have a trigger here, and a trigger here. So worst case scenario, if you lose to 225 and a half, I think it goes to 215, 217. So not an obvious long. Now conversely, look at these nice sharp lines that are failing. So I put the opportunity here. So which one do you want? Are the markets topping, like the markets are going to fall? This one will fall to 215. But if the market's fine footing, this is drawing an inverse head and shoulders as well. So you have a bearish pattern here and a bullish pattern here. Which one will break first? It's right in the middle. If you buy calls, you're guessing. If you buy puts, you're guessing. So what can you do? You can do an iron condor and take money off of both people who buy calls and buy puts. Kind of an idea. But I did that. It was stressful. I won. I walked away. I'm not going to do it again. CCL. All right, so I like it now better than up there when I shorted RCL, which didn't work out, but the chart did work out, but I was a little bit early. Now in the middle of the range. I think it's vulnerable to 7.5. although it could stop at like 7.8. I know there are sellers at 9 and 9.25. I would definitely not buy calls in this one. CLF, not an obvious entry point. Somewhere around 14 there is a buyer. Somewhere around 13.5 there is a buyer. So there's support below, but there's also sellers into 16. If you take this out, 16.7, you could get to 18 and 19, but that's not my forecast. Clover, this is a like either fraud or not fraud. So if you're a speculator on it, it's a buck. Don't use options, use the stock itself. I own some shares. I'm upside down on them, but it's a small bite for fun, because people say it is fake, yet it's now a $1.8 billion business. So which is it? I'm curious. We'll see. I don't add. I have what I have. Coin, I would avoid completely. I mean, the business could be fine. I just would avoid it completely. I don't understand how it trades with the price of Bitcoin. Like Schwab doesn't fall when the markets fall, because it makes money off the transactions, not off the stock assets. So I don't know why this one falls with Bitcoin, and then it falls with markets. So I would completely avoid it. If you're stuck in it, put a stop, protect yourself somehow by put spreads, and I would definitely not add. Not my style. You could. This is my opinion, of course. Costco, I like the company. It's falling into support. It's kind of following the path I laid out that I hoped wouldn't happen. It's in support. If it loses this one, like Apple, would surprise people and go much lower. Unfortunately, the target of this is lower than that arrow. So we might have a tag teaming bear. Still not done. It still may work out, but I would be cautious to punt it, roll it out before we get in trouble. I don't know what this one. Capri, definitely not an obvious entry point. Good trend, but goosenecks like these I don't like. I don't like to chase stocks, and you'd be chasing here. CRM, it's the opposite of chasing. It's in support. If I'm running out of time, I would roll it. It could still work out. This is a bargain. It's a good company, well managed. It has had a few confusing headlines with CEOs, but now it has its original CEO that championed it all the way up to here. Maybe it'll do better. That acquisition of Slack killed it. Killed the stock, not the company. CrowdStrike, I wouldn't touch it. You see how they're doing lower highs and lower lows? Every rally is being sold. I guarantee you there are sellers above 120, and I can't guarantee you that the 109 will hold. If you lose 109, this one will be 98 in no time. So if you get a rally, get out. If you chase it from here and you get a rally, trade it until you see stabilization and it back to say 135. It's in the hands of the sellers. Look at it. Every rally is being sold. You can draw lines, and they're all being sold. So the next one, if it rallies, I can't guarantee you it will hold. CVX, I still think it has more downside. Finally, the bear scenario is starting to unfold. Now, what the bulls don't know, that the rallies into 175 will find sellers, unlike when it was at 180. So at the top, they were fighting for control, but the moving averages are starting to cool down, which means systemically the algo will sell by knee-jerk reaction, the rallies. We'll see. I told you my view on oil, and it's shocking, and it sounds stupid, but I think they're stupid. So I'll take my stupid over their stupid any day. What am I saying? I think oil is so overinflated, and oil stocks are extremely vulnerable to that fact. If I'm right and oil prices drop, these stocks will collapse, because right now the PE is cheap. But if you take the E out, the P will be huge, and the E completely depends on one thing and one thing only: the price of oil for these two stocks, Chevron, Exxon. So be careful. It looks cheap on a PE basis, Exxon and Chevron, but if you change the price of oil drastically, wow, their P&L would collapse. The companies are excellent. Their numbers, their PE would be huge. Okay. DAL, like the other airline, rallies are going to be find sellers around 34. So it may bleed lower into that wick at 31. No reason to get long here with calls. If you own shares, that's something different. DE, nailed it. The short worked. I think it has a lot more downside. Although a good company, the stock was ridiculous. Let's see what it does. I think it has sellers. Look at the lag on this platform. Did you see how long it took for that stuff to show up? What is happening? Wow. Okay. So this drop is not enough. I think it has more downside to go. I am still short, but I'm very profitable, and I did trim. I wouldn't buy puts right now, but I am short via credit call spread. Dollar General stuck in the range. There's no reason to buy calls here. Weird action on top of here, so I think there's huge resistance above 150, 252. Just like there's decent support into 242, so kind of stuck. DHG. Sellers here, and you must hold this. If you don't, you come down to here, which is logical. But then you would have support, I guess. The Dow, on a weekly basis, this dip is healthy. Remember, I shared with you the fact that you need to drop in order to gather more momentum so you can break out. So this is a drop. And if they find footing around 320, Nick, that's like $8 lower. Yeah, it's fine. If they find footing here and they come back and they take this out, they'll make a new high. What? Yep. This is an all-time high, is it? Holy crap. Did you know this? Did anyone talk about this? That we were 4% from an all-time high? What? How did I not notice that number? This is crazy. Okay, so if you dip a little bit and you find support, even into this candle, even to 310, the bears are going to say, oh, we're going to hell. Okay, we could. But I think it's just as likely, in fact, more likely from distance. We are closer to an all-time high than the breakdown from here. And this is a big time. Look at this gap. Why leave this gap? If you did not have this gap, I would be very, very confident in saying that we will break out to an all-time high before retesting this. But look at this garbage price action. What morons we were in the pandemic year. All around. Everything. We did everything wrong as a humanity. It's unbelievable. Anyway, the stock is still not bearish here. So it's still got a chance, as they say on Dumb and Dumber. You mean there is a chance? Yes, there is. Disney falling into support, if I remember correctly. Look at the lag. Wow. I can't believe it. Hello, TradingView. Go with TrendSpider. We still have some discounts there. Disney falling into support. But if you lose 86, you may come down to 77 or 75. I believe my credit put spread would be in trouble then. Is it? No, this one expired or expires next week. Okay, so be careful with that if you have something like that. Good company. We'll have sellers into 95, so I wouldn't buy calls for a rebound. But if I do, I should put a stop. Duke Energy, I wouldn't touch it here. It could come down to 96, maybe even 93. Resistance above. Dixie. So I think somebody wanted to talk currency this week. I had a lot of currency questions. It's running into resistance. So this is the dollar index. The dollar had been in mega breakout, and now it's corrected hard like I said it would. We'll see. This is heavily dependent on what Powell says and does. This is, I believe, euro against the Australian dollar. Well, this is going to head lower. I think 1.575, 1.570 are in the cards. EVgo, why are you still trying? No, this is a broken stock, so you need to do homework to see if that company is broken or not. I don't know anything about it. It looks weird, P&L. So study the company. I would not add unless you know the company. EWZ, that I believe is Brazilian ETF. I avoid Brazilian stocks. I don't know why. They just never pan out for me. Technically, if the RSI improves drastically, you could have a big rally, but there's a lot of sellers into 2750. So which one first, 2750 or 2550? If you get to 2550, I think it goes to 24, get long there. If you get long into EWZ, make sure you stop out. All right, what is this? Expedia, falling into support. Same comments as EWZ. The support should hold, but if it doesn't, it goes one step lower. All-time low? Wow. Okay. So you can, I guess, somebody say, okay, I'm going to go long that company because it's making money. I'm not sure it does. I've come across it like 3 or 4 times. I've been traveling a lot recently. Is it? Oh, yes. Gint. Thanks, man. Yeah. So I guess anyway, I'll change the limits. In this one, I've been traveling a lot and I've come across it 2 or 3 times. Not one time did I think about using it. So I don't know. We'll see. It's time to stop the video. How quickly did this come about? Wow, we're ripping through them then. Okay, stopping this video.